I can still remember the day I turned 21. After 6 years of waiting, I was finally going to receive the inheritance my mom left me before cancer took her away. But instead of celebration, my stepmother Diana chose that moment to tell my father I had grabbed her inappropriately. The look in my dad's eyes when he turned to me, all trust gone in an instant. He believed her without question, throwing me out of the house and cutting me off completely. I lost my father and my future in one horrible night. 7 years would pass before he learned the truth. Before I get into this unbelievable story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If family betrayal stories resonate with you, please hit the subscribe button so you do not miss my next video. Now let me take you back to where it all began. My childhood was pretty much what most kids dream of having. My mom, Sarah, was incredible, not just as a parent, but as a person. She worked as a financial advisor and was brilliant with money-making smart investments that grew substantially over time. Our suburban home in Pennsylvania was always filled with laughter and warmth. Mom believed strongly in two things: education and honesty. She would say, "Cole, your integrity is the one thing nobody can take from you unless you give it away." Those words would become painfully ironic later in my life. We were inseparable, my mom and I. Weekends were for hiking in the nearby state park or cooking elaborate meals together. She taught me to play chess when I was 7, and we had standing Sunday afternoon matches. My father worked a lot traveling for his engineering job, but when he was home, we were a tight unit. Everything changed when I was 15. Mom started getting these terrible headaches. Then came the diagnosis. No family wants to hear an aggressive form of brain cancer. The doctors gave her less than a year, but my mother, being who she was, immediately focused on preparing for what would come after. "I want to make sure you are taken care of, Cole," she told me from her hospital bed. She had set up a trust fund for me to access when I turned 21. "This will help you start your adult life with stability. You can use it for college, to start a business, buy a home, whatever path you choose." On her final night, she made my father promise to honor her wishes about the inheritance. "Take care of our boy Richard," she whispered. He nodded solemnly, tears streaming down his face. "I promise, Sarah. Everything will go exactly as you planned." She passed away 3 days after my 16th birthday. The funeral was a blur of black clothes and hushed voices. My father and I were both devastated, moving around our suddenly empty house like ghosts. 6 months later, Dad attended a work conference in Chicago. That is where he met Diana. He brought her home for dinner about 3 weeks after they met, introducing her as a friend from work. Diana was tall, blonde, and always perfectly put together. She had a way of commanding attention in any room she entered. "Your father has told me so much about you, Cole," she said with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "I am so sorry about your mother. She sounds like she was an amazing woman." I thanked her politely, trying to be welcoming despite the strange feeling in my stomach. When Diana thought no one was watching, her expression would shift completely. The warmth would vanish, replaced by something calculating. Their relationship progressed quickly. Within 6 months, Dad proposed. Within a year of my mom passing, Diana had moved into our home and become my stepmother. I was 17 by then, focused on finishing high school and looking toward college. At first, I genuinely tried to welcome her into the family. I figured Dad deserved happiness after losing Mom, and I wanted to support him. But strange things started happening around the house. Financial documents that had always been kept in the study were now locked away. Conversations about money would halt abruptly when I entered a room. One night, I overheard Diana questioning Dad about my inheritance. "It seems excessive, Richard. That kind of money would be better used for our future together. Cole could still get a portion, of course." Dad pushed back initially. Sarah wanted him to have it. It was her money, her decision. These conversations became more frequent during my senior year. Each time, Diana seemed to wear him down a little more. Meanwhile, she became increasingly cold toward me when Dad was not around. "This house still feels like a shrine to Sarah," she said one afternoon when we were alone. "I think it is time we redecorated. Those family photos in the hallway should probably be put away." The photos were gone the next day. So was the quilt my grandmother had made that had always been on the living room couch. Bit by bit, traces of my mother were disappearing. I chose to attend Pennsylvania State University, about 4 hours away. close enough to visit occasionally, but far enough to escape the growing tension at home. I studied business administration, hoping to honor Mom's financial savvy and perhaps start my own company someday. During my first 2 years of college, I tried maintaining my relationship with Dad. Our phone calls became less frequent, though. When we did talk, Diana was often in the background monitoring our conversations. He sounded different, more subdued. As my 21st birthday approached, I became increasingly excited about returning home. Not just for the inheritance, though, that represented freedom and opportunity, but also to reconnect with my father. I hoped that with some time and distance, things might have improved. I was wrong. I drove back to my hometown on a Friday afternoon in October, exactly 1 week before my 21st birthday. The fall foliage was at its peak, brilliant reds and oranges lining the highway. Under different circumstances, it would have been a beautiful homecoming. I had big plans for the inheritance. After consulting with several mentors at school, I had drafted a business plan for a financial literacy app aimed at young adults. Mom would have approved, I thought, using her legacy to help others make smart decisions about money. Dad greeted me with a hug when I arrived, but he seemed nervous, his eyes darting toward Diana as she stood in the doorway. "Welcome home, son," he said, patting my back awkwardly. Diana offered a rigid smile. "Cole, how nice that you could make time to visit." That evening, while helping Dad prepare dinner, I noticed a folder of documents on his desk in the study. The label read Sarah's Trust with my name underneath. Before I could look closer, Diana appeared in the doorway. "Dinner is almost ready," she said sharply, "and those papers are private between your father and me." Throughout the meal, Dad kept looking at his watch. Diana drank 3 glasses of wine, becoming increasingly animated with each one. I noticed her shooting glances at the study door. "So, Cole," she said, refilling her glass a 4th time, "tell us about college. Any girlfriends we should know about?" I answered their questions politely, talking about classes and friends, but something felt off. Dad barely touched his food, and Diana kept steering the conversation toward my plans after graduation. "I actually have some exciting ideas," I started, ready to share my business concept. "Once the trust fund becomes available next week, I was thinking of." That is when it happened. Diana set down her wine glass with such force that red liquid sloshed onto the white tablecloth. "Richard, I cannot keep quiet anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "There is something you need to know about your son." Dad looked up, confused. "What are you talking about?" Diana turned to him, tears suddenly streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "Last Christmas, when you went to get dessert from the kitchen, Cole cornered me in the hallway. He grabbed me inappropriately and tried to kiss me." My jaw dropped. "What? That never happened," she continued as if I had not spoken. "I was too ashamed to tell you. Then last month when he called, he suggested that we could have a special arrangement when he visited. He said you would never have to know." The accusations were so outlandish, so completely fabricated, that for a moment I was speechless. Dad stared at me, his face draining of color. "Dad, she is lying," I finally managed to say. "None of this happened. Not at Christmas, not ever." Diana was fully sobbing now. "I should have told you sooner, but I was scared." "This is not the first time, Richard. There have been other incidents." "Other incidents?" I stood up, knocking my chair backward. "This is insane. She is making this all up. Dad, you know me. You know I would never do anything like that." I expected my father to question her, to ask for details that would quickly reveal the inconsistencies in her story. Instead, he turned to me with a look I had never seen before. Disgust, anger, betrayal. "How could you, Cole?" he whispered. "Dad, please," I begged. "She is lying. Why would I ever do something like that?" "Get out," he said, his voice growing louder. "Get out of this house right now." Richard, Diana interjected, suddenly concerned. "It is dark out. Maybe he should just go to his room and we can discuss this tomorrow when everyone is calmer." "No," Dad said firmly. "I want him gone. Now." I tried one more time. "Dad, this is crazy. Just think about it. Why would she wait until exactly 1 week before my inheritance to suddenly make these accusations?" His face hardened. "So that is what this is about. The money your mother would be ashamed." Those words cut deeper than anything else. I grabbed my jacket and car keys, tears blurring my vision as I stumbled toward the door. Diana watched from the dining room, a satisfied look briefly crossing her face when my father was not looking. 2 days later, I received an email from my father's lawyer. Due to circumstances that had come to light, changes were being made to the trust fund arrangement. My father, as the secondary trustee after my mother's death, was exercising his right to withhold the inheritance based on a morality clause. I consulted a lawyer of my own, using most of my savings to pay the retainer. What we discovered was devastating. Diana had already convinced my father to move a significant portion of the funds into a joint account for safekeeping months earlier. Fighting would be expensive, with no guarantee of success. After weeks of legal back and forth, I agreed to a settlement that left me with less than 20% of what my mother had intended for me. The alternative was a prolonged court battle that would drain even more of the funds and might still end in defeat.